Hello and welcome to the Jacksonville History Show. I'm Emily Rutherford-Liska, and the show today will be an interesting one. First, we'll talk about your family history and how to create that history with leaders from the Southern Genealogist Exchange Society. And later, Harry Reagan will turn the tables on me. He'll be interviewing me, and believe it or not, we'll talk about earthquakes in Jacksonville, Florida. And first, I want to say hello, John, and hello, Mike. Welcome. You two are so well known for your leadership in teaching and assisting the citizens of Jacksonville, North Florida, and beyond, much beyond, on creating family histories, filling out their genealogies. So welcome. John Ferguson, I want to start with you and ask you, how did you get involved with this? Because this is part of your life every day, I know.
Indeed, 24/7. Went a long time ago, when I was a young boy in junior high school, I asked my mother if she could name all of her brothers and sisters. There were 16 of them total, and she said, of course. And so she named her brothers and sisters and gave me their birth dates and their spouses' names and their marriage dates and the names of the dogs and cats. So I said, do you also know Dad's brothers and sisters? Oh, yes. And she rattled those off. And I took them down in writing. That was the best coup I'd ever had. That was the beginning of my family history. I've always been interested in collecting this, but didn't know what I was doing back then with pen and pencil. I found out that family history research does not have to be expensive. You can do it like I did with an old-fashioned typewriter or pencil and paper. You're never too young to start. In fact, the sooner you start, the better.
Now, John, let me just interrupt you for a minute. You found out your mother had how many siblings?
There were 16 children altogether.
Now, out of that, how many first cousins did you have?
Hundreds of them.
Did you? I just had to ask. I can't even imagine a family gathering.
Well,
it's a lot of fried chicken.
Grandpa kept having children after Mother and Dad were married. He had 3 wives total.
Oh, my.
And so some of my aunts and uncles are like brothers and sisters.
Exactly, because they could well be much younger than you,
the only
right?
difference is that I was the last, being a twin, 30 minutes younger than my twin brother, but we had a sister, 21, when we were born.
Oh.
So she is more like my aunts and uncles, actually, see, because of the big spread.
How interesting families were a number of generations back.
Well, they had to have large families because they were all farmers, and the farm hands were cheap, you know, when they were family members.
And now I don't know if you've gotten to go all the way through your early exploration, how you got started, but I think I'll ask Mike the same thing, and we'll come back to you, John.
Okay.
Yes. I have a similar background, except I know out the 16 brothers and sisters, and I was very fortunate to know both sets of my grandparents. They were healthy enough and welcome enough to have grandchildren to come visit with them. I spent summers with my grandfather on both sides and grandmother on both sides. One of the fondest memories I have of my grandfather going out and getting a cantaloupe, coming back to the front porch. He had a wraparound front porch and rocking chairs, and he split the cantaloupe, brought him out of somewhere a spoon. We sat and rocked and ate a cantaloupe. To this day, I can taste the cantaloupe.
What city and state were you in at the time? Where were you? Where was he?
He was sitting just like the two of us.
Where? Here in Jacksonville or another city and state?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, okay.
The thing that we're pushing or wanting to really emphasize, we have a writing seminar coming up, and one thing we're trying to avoid, get people to avoid, is without regret saying, I wish I had listened, I wish I had recorded, wish I had taken time, instead of saying, I wish, take the time. The writing seminar 3 years ago, I wrote one of the writing exercises about the experience I had with the cantaloupe of my grandfather, and that was the beginning of one of the first articles I had published. So with that in mind, you cannot say please enough, take time to record and just write. You don't have to be a professional writer. Writing is just something you share with your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and it's part of history that you should record.
Now, along those lines, earlier, I believe it was John showing me the notebook you have in your lap, Mike.
Yes.
And I think this is a notebook created by John.
Yes.
Obviously, maybe an inspiration to you, and he had just subjects that come to mind, incidents that come to mind. He's entitled them and written about them. Just give us some examples of some of the subjects you might choose to write about, and I think it really will perk a lot of people out there listening.
Very good. First of all, you don't need to put any kind of a chronological timeline on this. Just write what you remember, but then date your material. And if you can, date the time that this happened. For instance, here's one called Buttermilk. And it's about drinking buttered milk with my Uncle Bill. And it should be dated. This is March 25th, 1999, when I wrote it, but it covers a period just before that. So the period should be dated. You should be able to find out when this happened and where it happened, because when you join this with your data, this makes your family history readable.
Now, John, okay, so give us examples of other subjects you might have covered.
Biscuit fight.
Biscuit fight, okay, my kind of
Christmas.
family.
Bantams.
Bantams? What's bantams?
That's chickens.
Chickens. Oh, I'm sorry. Because when I read earlier about chicken dressing, you said, I don't think it's what you think it is.
It's not food. It was dressing chickens. And I might mention that that was the biggest blessing my mother ever gave me. She said, John, don't ever learn how to dress chickens, and you'll never be called upon to do it.
Well, I have to tell a story on my mother. She will turn 90 in September, and she will only to this day prepare chicken that has previously been frozen. So she goes out, buys chicken, even if it's fresh, she freezes it, then she'll thaw it out and prepare it, and she claims it was based on being sent outside to wring the chicken's neck. So, you know, that's my story. Maybe I should write it down.
Oh, yes, you should. You should. Here's Ain't Gonna Rain No More. That was a record that was stuck in an old wind-up Victrola. I wrote about it in 1998, but it covered a period from 1948. Adopted grandmothers. When we were growing up, I didn't have a grandmother, so we adopted grandmothers as they adopted us.
Well, with that many grandchildren, she was exhausted, I can tell you that. Now, I will, and so the topics are endless. I want to go back because I don't want people to be discouraged, and you would know the answers to this. Let's just say you didn't take the opportunity to get this information you're begging people to get, who the siblings were, who the relatives were, family information. If people just walk into you cold and have almost nothing, how helpful can you be? I'm sure the two of you can be.
Yeah. One thing that we'd like to extend invitation to everyone,
okay.
Our location, we have a genealogy library. We're 6,000 volumes, wonderful family history, family recorded history, which we're part of this. It's at 6215 Sauternes Drive.
Over on the west side.
On the west side.
Off Blanding Boulevard.
Blanding and 103rd Street.
Okay.
We are open Wednesdays and Thursdays, 10 to 3. The first and third Saturday from 10 to 3. Our phone number is 778-1000. We also can be reached with their posted signs of people on duty. John is always on duty. Part of the Ancestry we have also is Ancestry.com World Edition, which would come in for starters to help people.
It's like a library of genealogy
It's
there.
a genealogy library. One of my hats I wore once upon a time, I was a high school librarian. Do not share that with many people because first thing we want to do is shelve books and organize or start the library, man the library. My love now is cemeteries. John and I are in cemeteries. That's one of the things we do. We're recording history.
You've documented, you've found grave sites, you record this, people call, they find their relatives all the time based on this detailed work you've done for decades.
Yes.
And we thank you for that. You certainly have been awarded on behalf of our city a number of times by the Preservation Commission, and your work is just stellar. And people find out more about their histories because of your work. So if they walk in the door, do people pay to use the services?
We have a membership. You can join single or family membership.
Nominal?
Or you can do, yes.
Nominal, okay.
Or you can do a $5 research if you want to come in for one day for an introduction. Sometimes people, genealogy is very, close being fickle. Sometimes you give the answer and people walk away. Other people stay and stay and stay, and some people get the bug like we have. We do not understand why people do not do it 24/7 like we do. Part of the thing we encourage people, and John mentioned part of it, I started off with the microfilm, microfiche, and not Ancestry.com. Ancestry.com now is a wonderful resource. Okay. We have that, the World Edition, and definitely will show you how to do that. It's a great starting place.
How many days a week are you there at the headquarters?
Officially one, but we're there off and on.
You'll go as per requested as well.
Right. We'll even we have our phone number of home phones posted.
Okay, and people can find this. They could go online and just put in Southern Genealogist Exchange Society, and you'll pop right up.
Correct.
I think using your initials,
SGES, Jax.
And they'll see your phone number right there.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in just a minute, I want to talk about this big seminar you're having, but before we do that, John, do you want to mention anything about just examples of what people can put together? We have just a couple of minutes left.
Be glad to. I did, first of all, the Ferguson book. You start with your own family, starting with yourself and working backwards usually. And so this is just an accumulation of documents and charts that I've done on my father's side.
And you can help people do all of this for their families.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is my barber book on my mother's side. It's just fun to put it all together. And you see they're separated by members of that family. You don't do just your mother and your father. You also do their brothers and sisters right on down the line. And the advantage of this is recruiting other people to get involved, especially your spouse. If you get your spouse involved with you, then you plan all your vacation trips around visits to cemeteries and courthouses and libraries and archives and work together on that. I'm so lucky that my wife is also involved, and one of her families are the Johnson family, and books are written already for some people, and we have many books in our library, over 2,000 family history books in our library. So your work may be done for you, at least will help you. So come on in.
That's perfect. And I want to mention quickly, you're the president of the society at this point. And
through this year.
Through this year. And I would be remiss if I didn't let the public know through you this big seminar coming up. We just have 1 minute, so let's give them the details.
We have the writing seminar coming up September 10. We located at Riverside Presbyterian Church at 5 Points from 9 to 3. It's $40, including lunch and free parking. The person that our writing seminar leader will be Patricia Sarpentier. Wonderful, wonderful person. It's one of those people you sit down, you get started, and next thing you know, do I have to leave? It's an all-day, wonderful, wonderful experience. It encourages people to share and write. And that's what we want to do, write down the memories.
And how do people register? Could they contact the Southern Genealogy?
Southern Genealogy, come to our website
and they can
and go from there.
Well, thank you. You're a wealth of information. You are wonderful, wonderful resources in our city. John Ferguson, Mike Lawson, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.